So let's start with just some things in general. I don't know if you can tell. Anybody think that I'm kind of excited about what I do for a living? Anybody tell that? How many of you have this kind of excitement for what you want to do for a living? You got it. If you don't have it, you got to get it. If you ain't going to get it, become an insurance salesman. Work at McDonald's. Do something else, because this business is about being excited. It's about being passionate about something. If you take nothing else away tonight than this is the most important thing. The brain does not know the difference between what is real and what is imagined. Has anybody ever heard this? It's true. I read it in a Tony Robbins book, but it's a true statement. The brain doesn't know the difference. I used to say, before I made it in the company of strangers, people would say, what do you do for a living? And I'd say, oh, well, I want to be a filmmaker. I'm a legal videographer. I used to videotape depositions for a court report. So yeah, I'm a legal videographer, but I want to be a filmmaker. When I realized I had to change the way I thought. So instead of saying, I want to be a filmmaker, people would say, what do you do for a living? This was before I had ever even made a film. I would say, I'm a filmmaker, and I support myself as a legal videographer. Two things happen when you make that change in your brain. The first thing that happens is your brain goes, wait a second, when did you become a filmmaker? And then the second thing your brain says is, okay, let's make you a filmmaker. And it works while you're doing other things. It works while you're sleeping. It works while you're eating. It works while you're working out. It works while you're on a date. It works while you're at work. It's working all the time to make you a filmmaker. But you have to believe it. But if you're not, and that's why I say, if you're not excited about it, find something else to do. But if you're truly excited about it, then you got to go after it like crazy. And what that means is, if you're going to be a screenwriter, you have to start today. If you're a filmmaker, start today. If you're working on a film in school, make that film great. I see a lot of student films, and they'll say, oh, well, you know, we didn't really have good lights for this, or we couldn't really get the good microphone for it, or we couldn't get a windscreen on the microphone. That's why it's real loud outside. We're shooting in a parking lot. Your college films or your college screenplays are going to be your calling card when you get out in the real world, whenever you graduate. That is going to be the thing that is going to show people that you're serious. It's got to be good. And I go to a lot of film festivals. I see a lot of films by people your age and younger, and they are phenomenal. That's what you're dealing with. That's what the rest of the world is doing. Your stuff has to be really, really good, because everybody can make them now. So now it becomes, how good do you tell a story? How good are you technically? How good is your screenplay? How good are your skills? Do you realize that if you've got a weird shadow, or if you've got a light and it's catching your boom and it's showing a boom shadow onto your shot, you got to get rid of that. You have to have so much attention to detail. How many screenwriters do we have again? Show of hands. Okay. So those of you who aren't screenwriters, we're going to talk about this, and go into this kind of in depth. If you want to be a filmmaker, you are going to deal with a screenplay at some point. You're either going to eventually write your own, because the stuff you're getting is garbage, or you're going to have to take a screenplay that someone has written, you're going to have to fix it. Or someone's going to come to you with a screenplay, and you're going to have to be able to assess if that screenplay is any good. So for those of you who aren't writing screenplays, I would still recommend you pay attention to this. This portion is really for the screenwriter. Okay? How many of you have actually written a screenplay? Okay. All right. So let's talk just about some of the general problems that I see when I look at screenplays. I have people come to me all the time and say, hey, I've got a screenplay. Will you take a look at my screenplay and just tell me what you think about it? And most of the time, they're not very good. They just aren't. And there are lots of problems. And not necessarily story. Here's one thing. I see this with screenplays. I also see this with resumes and business plans and log lines. With computers, everybody goes, oh, yeah, I run it through spell check. It's fine. You're going to miss something, but make sure you use spell check, just because if I get a screenplay with misspellings in it, I'm probably not going to read it, or not going to read it very far. I expect maybe one or two, a misplaced letter here or there, but if you've got something that looks like this, I don't think I'm going to read it. I'm not going to waste 2 hours of my life reading something that you don't have very much interest in, because you let it go out like this. You can run spell check, but you can also run into this problem. I see this a lot with college students, which drives me crazy. All these words would pass spell check, but most of them are wrong. Here's what happens when I read a screenplay by someone who's got a college education, and they use the word to incorrectly. There are two people coming to the store, and it's spelled T-O-O. We're going there, T-H-E-I-R. Huh? You have to know how to spell basic English words. You guys are college students. If you don't know how to spell those words, give your screenplay to somebody who does and say, find all the mistakes I made. Those are things that when I read a screenplay, if you are using those words incorrectly, it can be the most amazing screenplay in the world. I'm not going to read it because you don't have attention to detail. And you have to have attention to detail from the very beginning of your career until you're 90 years old and you're writing your eulogy for somebody to deliver at your funeral. Attention to detail. The screenplay really is the foundation of the film. Everything springs from that screenplay. Wardrobe, location, the director's vision for your screenplay, how makeup is done. It informs what the production designer does. Everything comes from that screenplay. It's got to be solid. And I'm not talking just structure, I'm talking everything. If your foundation isn't strong, you're going to have a film that looks like this place. It's got to be there. So, how do you make a strong foundation? What is screenwriting? Has anybody ever heard this one? Writing is rewriting. Have you heard this phrase? Writing is rewriting? It really is. Writing is rewriting. You have to... I see people, they say, I wrote this screenplay in 4 days. And you're giving it to me to read? No. I don't want to read something you just wrote 4 days ago. I want to read something you sweated over. I had a guy come to me, he said, I want you to read my screenplay. It was 300 pages long. His first draft was dated May 1st, 12 drafts in 30 days. I'm going to tell you right now, a draft of a screenplay is not going through and adding a comma where one was missing. It's not changing there, T-H-E-I-R to T-H-E-R-E. That's not a draft. A draft is you finish it, you put it away. Why do you think you put it away? Anybody know why you put it away? Why do you put it away? Characters make sense, the scenarios make sense. What else? Anybody else? Yes?
You rest your mind after a day, so that we look at it with kind of a relaxed mindset.
A relaxed mindset, and also almost like it's new. If you can put it away for a week, or if you have the luxury to put it away for 2 weeks, get it away. Don't read it during the week. Put it away. Come back to it later and read it with what I like to call fresh eyes. You're going to see lots of problems. You'll see structure problems. You'll see dialogue problems. You can't do 12 drafts in 30 days. You just can't. It's not going to be any good. Take your time with your screenplay. The one thing you do not want to do when you get your screenplay done is send it out into the marketplace and it's not ready to be read by someone. Because you get one shot with your screenplay. I know this because I was in Hollywood. You get one shot. If it ain't good, you're not going to get a second shot within I got something better. No, we've already read what you can do. We're not interested in wasting 2 more hours of our life on your crap. You've got to make sure it's good. Make sure the structure is strong. Make sure the characters are good. Anybody have problems with writing dialogue? Yeah, okay. Want to know a great trick for writing dialogue? Do you write with someone or do you write by yourself? Okay. A great trick you can even do this by yourself. First of all, let me ask you this. When you have a character in mind, how do you write character voices? Tell me what your process is for writing character voices.
First, I go through and see what the personality is like, where they're from, and based on that, I'll just try to get words down on paper so I know what the conversation is about. Then when I go and work on one of my drafts, I'll try to refine the voice that way just to see if I can find it.
Okay, did everybody hear that? Okay. If you can't hear it, just let us know because I won't be able to repeat a lot of these answers. I want to make sure you can all hear that. That's a great way to write character voices. Another thing that I like to do was really effective with me, and I worked with a partner on 3. I wrote In the Company of Strangers myself, but the other things that I wrote with a partner. We would take a recorder and we would just do the dialogue. Okay, what's the scene? The scene is they go to they're going to be at an outdoor cafe. All right, I'll play Lincoln, you play Kevin, let's just improvise. And what happens is you get real natural conversation. Don't think, I'm writing. Just act out the scene, improvise the scene. You can do it with yourself. you know, the waiter comes up, hey, Mr. President, chocolate shake? Yes, sir, a chocolate shake would be lovely. You can do it yourself. You can do dialogue yourself. You record it and then transcribe it exactly as you wrote it. It'll be more natural. Also, I like to think of an actor have an actor in mind when I write character. When we wrote President's Day, we had Kevin Kline and Bonnie Hunt in mind, and we had David Strathairn in mind to play Lincoln. I know how all those actors sound, so when I write for them, I'm writing their voice. It helps give everybody a different voice. Okay? Try that. It may help you write character more easily. You still got to go back and fix things, but it keeps you from writing stilted dialogue. If you record it, if you just sort of improvise it, and then transcribe it as it is, as you hear it. Okay? Take your time. Don't rush through it. Like I said, you're going to get one shot at it. When it goes, let's say you send your screenplay off to a production house or an agent. The agent is going to read it, and they're either going to say yes or they're going to pass on it. If there's something wrong, if it doesn't spark with them, you're not going to get another shot. We had a meeting with a company that they were one of the producers for Cable Guy, the Jim Carrey movie from years ago. And we went in, and it wasn't because our screenplay was bad. We screwed up the pitch meeting. We went in, and we weren't prepared, and we never got a chance to go in. It was Lickman Shapiro at the time. Never got a chance to meet those guys again. They were players in Hollywood. And we had one shot, and we blew it. And we never got a chance to go back. You get one shot with your stuff. Make sure it's good. I mentioned William Goldman at the beginning. This is the two books I'm talking about. Adventures in the Screen Trade, which is an incredible book about Hollywood, and Which Lie Did I Tell? More Adventures in the Screen Trade. They're great books. They're easy to read. He writes in a very easy style. I recommend you pick up both of them. You can get them both in paperback, and they're amazing. They will tell you backstory, backstage stuff about the industry. This is great for screenwriters. You can sit there and you'll spend an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours working on a scene, and it will be a brilliant scene. And then you get done and you realize this scene doesn't move the story forward. What's the most important thing that a scene can do in a screenplay? What can it do? What's it supposed to do? Drive the plot forward. If it doesn't drive the plot forward, you have to get rid of it. It can be the most brilliant piece of work you've ever done. If it does not advance the story, you've got to murder your darlings. You've got to get them out of there. It doesn't work. I spent a day shooting a scene for In the Company of Strangers. It was a brilliant scene. It was all improvised. I brought these actors in. I said, you're in a counseling session. I just want you to talk about dealing with death. And my DP sat in the middle of the room with his camera, and he just went like this for 2 hours, and he videotaped this incredible scene. Guess what? It's not in the movie. It didn't work. It didn't drive the story forward. It was too much time wasted on something that wasn't important. I had to get rid of it. I wasted a day shooting that, and I had to get rid of it. That was $4,000 that I flushed down the toilet, because my days were $4,000 days. Murder your dollars. It can be the best thing you've ever done. If it doesn't work, get rid of it. Okay, now we're going to look at I want to dig deeper into actual screenplay. These are lots of problems. We just did a major event, 3 weeks ago, and I read a lot of screenplays. And what I'm seeing is a lot of basic mistakes that people are making. And let's say you send your screenplay to me. I'm a reader, or I'm an agent, or I'm a producer. Here's your screenplay. I'm going to show you what happens when you send a screenplay out. Whether it's locally, whether it's in Hollywood, here's what happens to your screenplay. The first thing the person does, they look at your screenplay. How many Brads does this screenplay have? How many Brads? 2. If there are 3 Brads, I know you don't understand the process of writing a screenplay. A screenplay, believe it or not, it's as stupid as this. A screenplay has 2 Brads. Okay? Here's the cover. What's the cover look like? It's blank. It's heavy paper, cover weight paper, and there's nothing on it. And what color is it? It's white. This is the proper cover for a screenplay. If you've got a logo on there, if you've got your title on there, if it's blue or pink or green or yellow, it is not proper format. Now, formatting, it varies. There's a lot of variation. Some people will still look at a colored cover, but why take the chance? If someone's going to say, he doesn't understand the format, I'm not going to read it. Don't give a reader any reason to pass on your screenplay. And for some people, the wrong color, 3 brads, is a reason to pass on your screenplay. The next thing I'm going to do, if everything's good so far, I'm going to go to the last page. 123 pages. Okay, what's the standard accepted screenplay length? Anybody know? 90 and 120, right? Was that what you were going to say? Between 90 and 120. If it's a historical drama, maybe you can get away with a few more pages. If you're a first-time screenwriter, you better fall between 90 and 120. This was 123. We still got it out, but it was a struggle. Okay, 123 pages, good. Now, here's the next thing I'm going to do. I'm going to go through it, and I'm just going to look at it. I'm going to flip through it. All right, it looks like it's the right typeface. What's the correct typeface for a screenplay? Courier. What size? 12-point Courier. It's got to be 12-point Courier. If it's 12-point Times New Roman, you don't understand the format. Why am I going to waste my time? If you don't understand it, I'm not going to waste my time on your screenplay. I'm going to continue to flip through it. Oh, this is nice. All the character slugs look like they're in the right spot. All the scene slugs look like they're in the right spot. Lots and lots of white space. I like that. Less to read. All right, I'm going to read the first 10 pages. What happens if I'm not captured in the first 10 pages? Goes in the garbage. Not going to read it. If I like the first 10, know what I'll do next? Anybody know what I'll do next?
You'll read next time.
Well, some people might. Typically what happens is they read the last 30. They'll jump to the end. How's the end this thing? Oh, okay. Let's read it. It's shorthand in reader world. Readers get paid by the number of screenplays they read. So they'll go home on the weekends with a stack of screenplays, and they got to read all those, and that's how they get paid. They got to read them. They got to do coverage on them. Anybody know what coverage is on a screenplay? What is it?
It's like when you write, whether it's like it's not really a summary as much as it's like whether they should invest in it, whether somebody should pick it up.
Well, they should greenlight it or pass on it, recommend the writer. They're looking for how well do they write the character, how well do they write dialogue. Is a story compelling? They call it coverage. There's some speculation whether coverage actually exists, but someone's got to do some sort of paperwork on the screenplay to pass it up to a producer in their company and say, you ought to look at this. This might be good. Okay. Here are some of the things that I see when I look at a screenplay. First of all, some people don't know how to do a scene slug. This is a correct scene slug. It is interior or exterior only. Interior or exterior always starts the slug. It's followed by a period. Only a period. Then it's a space, only a space. Not a dash, not 3 spaces, not a tab, a space. Then you start big and you go small. So you're interior, you're at the Peabody Institute, you're in the control room, and it's day. It's either day or night. You don't want to get real fancy with it. You don't say, interior Peabody Institute control room, 2:15 p.m. That's too specific. All right? If these are wrong, if I start to read your screenplay and you've got weird scene slugs, I'm not going to read it. Here's another one that would be acceptable. Exterior airport day, establishing. That just means it's a wide shot of the airport. Oh, we're at the airport. Anybody Seinfeld fans? Anybody any Seinfeld fans? Every time they start a Seinfeld scene, you see they're either outside Jerry's apartment or outside Monk's or Tom's or wherever. They always start with an establishing shot. That's what this is. It tells us where we are. Then once I get down here, I'm going to become more specific. Maybe it's a lounge, it's during the day. I'm going to give you a second to read this, and we're going to go through this, and you're going to tell me what's wrong with this first half of the screenplay page. Yeah.
Yours should be a contraction for you are.
Okay. I hate to use a laser pointer, but right there. That's wrong. What else? There's lots wrong with this. What else is wrong?
Mumbles is capitalized. The last Brian Mumbles. It looks like that's his name. His last name
Okay.
Mumbles.
Good. Okay. Good. That's another one. What else?
Aren't you supposed to capitalize a name the first time that it's mentioned, and then not again in action lines?
Very good. Why do you do that?
I'm not sure.
Okay, good. You're right. The first time you meet a character in your screenplay, and it's not dialogue, it's not a dialogue slug. This is a character slug. This is a character slug. It means that character is going to speak that line. That's always capitalized. The only other time you ever capitalize a character's name is the first time you meet them. You don't capitalize it the first time in every scene that you meet them. The first time in every page that you meet them. The first time you meet them, it's capitalized. And here's why. And this is a problem I see a lot with college students' screenplays or early screenplays. Screenplays by screenwriters who are new. They always capitalize it. This goes, and we're going to talk more about this in a little bit. But if I'm a production designer or I'm a line producer and I'm putting your screenplay together, I'm going through your screenplay, I need to know how many characters are in it. So every time I see a capitalized character in the screenplay, that's the first time they're introduced. Oh, that's a new character. The next time I see a capitalized name, oh, Brian, that's a new character. Oh, there are 2 characters in this one. If I see Brian down here, there's 3 characters. There's 3 of them named Brian. Huh? I need to know, because when I put the budget together, I need to know how many main characters I'm going to have. Because we're each going to get, what, $700,000, $800,000 a day? 4 characters, that's $4,000. 2 characters, that's half. I need to know how many new characters there are in your screenplay. That's how you designate it. By the first time you meet them, they're in all caps. Very good. Okay, that's the reason why. It isn't just, none of these things that I'm going to talk to you about are arbitrary. They've all come from years and years and years of people writing screenplays. What else? You guys are doing pretty good. What else?
You don't need that second scene slug. I don't think. I mean, I could be
This
wrong.
one here?
Yeah, do you need that?
That's very good. You don't need it as it's written.
Oh.
A little different attack on it, but you're absolutely right. You don't need that. We're exterior already. I don't need to be exterior again. Unless we're going to a completely new location, in which case it might be exterior Trinity House, exterior the zoo. Now I need to know that we're still exterior, but in this case, you don't need that. So you're right, Mark. You don't need that second one. What else? Anybody else? Yeah.
Maybe that he's $1,000 worth of stress and anxiety in a $600 suit. I mean, that might, I don't know, that could mean something to somebody. Like needs, I don't know. It's not a very good, I don't know, weird description kind of. Is that?
That would not be one of them. Let's talk about that, though. Here's what I see a lot of. Dennis Nowicki is getting out of the driver's side. He's 36 with dark hair. 36 with dark hair doesn't tell me anything about this. He's 36. Okay, all of a sudden I've narrowed down the number of actors I can hire to play this part to 36-year-old guys. Or guys who look 36. And they better have dark hair. Because Dennis has dark hair. This is more descriptive. He's $1,000 worth of stress and anxiety in a $600 suit. This guy, what does that tell you? This guy, $1,000 worth of stress. He's stressed, man. But he's trying to look like he's got money, but he probably doesn't because he's wearing a $600 Joseph B. Banks suit rather than an Armani suit. So it may not be the best description, but it's very descriptive. Okay? You want your character, when you introduce a character, you want it to be descriptive. Actors need something to play off. If you put in here, know what a parenthetical is? Everybody know what a parenthetical is? Okay. Riley. He said Riley. They also call them Rileys. W-R-Y-L-Y. Dennis, Riley. I think that you should wear bigger shorts. It tells the actor how to deliver the line. They're really kind of looked down upon. It used to be really popular to do that. Sternly, excitedly, anxiously. Then you deliver the line. But actors kind of get ticked off at that. It's like, I want to interpret this character the way I want. Don't tell me how to read the line. I'm an intelligent person. I can figure it out. So Rileys or parentheticals are really kind of frowned upon. But you don't want to tell them how to deliver the line, but you want to give your reader some idea of who this character is so they can cast it properly. You know, he's a creepy guy. I don't know. I hear creepy immediately. I think if he's the right age, Christopher Walken would be creepy, okay? But I wouldn't say creepy. I might say the guy reeks of a 30s horror movie. Okay, now it's getting interesting. That's why you do your character descriptions like that. It gives the actor something to hang on to, okay? Anybody else? Yes.
Instead of he is looking, it should be he looks uncomfortable. Is
Very good. There's several times in here where is that? He looks
that,
uncomfortable. He is
the Brian X.
Right there.
Yeah.
Anytime you do an action like this, Dennis Nowicki is getting out of the car. It needs to be active, present tense. Dennis Nowicki gets out of the car, not is getting out of the car. Got out of the car. It's happening as we're watching it. It's got to be active, present tense. I'll show you. There are several of them. Did you have another one, or was that?
I was
pretty
going to
good?
say that exact same thing, actually.
Real important. And if I see those, I realize you don't know how to write a screenplay. It's got to be happening now. Okay, so let's just go through them. Here are all the mistakes. You kind of got it. All right. First is a new Jeep pulls up in front of Trinity House. The Jeep stops in a parking spot, kind of being redundant. How about this? It's quicker. It's shorter. How about a new Jeep pulls up in front, stops in front of where? In front of Trinity House, because that's the scene. You don't need to say in front of Trinity House because I've already said it. Stops. It's quick. The fewer words that you have in your screenplay, as long as it gets the point across, the more I like it as a reader, because I don't want to read a lot of words. Keep them short. Okay, Mark, you said the second slug, you don't need it? You really don't. If I want to zoom in on it, I say close on the Jeep. Okay, so we're outside, but we're going to zoom in on that Jeep. We're going to see that Jeep up close. We're still outdoors, but we're close on the Jeep. So that was a good call. Next one. You guys got it. Dennis Nowicki gets out of the driver's side. Brian exits. Instead of saying he is looking uncomfortable, Brian looks uncomfortable. His face is still showing. His face shows the effects of the assault. Everything active, present tense. Next, you got this one. You're a lucky young man. Yep, you are. Apostrophe R-E. Very good. Who said the second capitalization on the name? That was you, right? Yep. Brian. Anytime you see Brian, again, in scene, it's going to be lowercase. Mumbles, it's one of those things where if you have a sound effect, like there's an explosion, a big boom fills the room, boom is a special effect. So I want to key in my line producer that you're going to need to have a special effect artist to bring in a big explosion. So I would capitalize that boom. I would capitalize a lightning flash. Anything that can't be done practically, in other words, this is a practical light. If I come over here and I turn this light off, and the scene goes dark, that's practical. If I come over here and turn the light off and a gaffer has to turn the lights off because these lights aren't really in the room, that's not a practical light. Practical lights, practical effects. Anytime you have something that somebody can deliver, like mumbles, you do it in lowercase. If it's an explosion, if it's a loud sound, if it's rock music, if it's Kanye West, you want that to be capitalized. All right. Good job. I see this all the time in screenplays. And I think this is because you're using Final Draft or using some sort of a screenwriting program. And it puts these continueds in. You don't need them. They're okay, but you don't need them. It's an old thing. You'd say, well, you get to the end of the scene, this scene is continued on the next page. Well, you know what? When I turn to the next page, I don't have a new scene slug here, so I know that it's still the same scene. Those two continues are two words that I don't need to read. If your screenplay is 120 pages long and you've got to continue at the top and the bottom of every page, that's 280 words that I don't want to have to read. Don't use them unless you need them. I'm smart enough to know that the scene continues. So get rid of the continues. You also pick up a little space. Watch what happens. When this goes away, I pick up 2 lines. I can squeeze more into my screenplay in that 120 pages that I want. Take a look at this. Is it difficult to read? Can you imagine a whole screenplay like this? It gets kind of tedious, doesn't it? Anybody ever picked up a book at the library and opened up and the type was really small and you go, geez, there's no pictures. Oh man, I don't want to read this. How about this? Look at that. It airs it out. Film is a visual medium. You're telling a story with pictures. Your screenplay has to also be approached in the same way. It's a visual medium. Air it out. Give it space. Give it negative space. Remember I was talking to you about I go through the screenplay and I go, how much white space is there? If I see this, I'm going to have a hard time getting through it. This, I can read. This is going to be a breeze. Take a look at one more. I've seen them like this. Oh my goodness. This is hard to read. How do you get through that? When I read a screenplay that somebody gives me and I get to these things, I skim them. There's too much information in there for me to read. So, let's take a look at how this should be done. And here's the rule on any sort of scene description in a screenplay. No more than 4 sentences in a paragraph. No more than 4. Look how much better it is already. It's all the same information. I just added a couple scene directions. We're going to be in the monitor, in the control room, on Lincoln, on the control room. But it's much easier to read all of a sudden, right? How many people think this is easier to read? Show of hands. Do you really?
The next one.
This one? Yeah. How many think this is easier to read? Yeah. A page of screenplay is how long? How long is a page of screenplay in film time? Anybody know? 1 minute page time, or 1 minute page. 1 page of screenplay is 1 minute of screen time. If I have a scene like this is definitely going to be more than 1 minute, and this is half a page of screenplay. So it's throwing off the scheduling, the budgeting of this film because it's not written properly. So you want it to be like this. And again, it's easier to read. Can we take a break for a couple minutes? Give everybody a chance to stretch their legs?
Oh, absolutely. I love breaks. Yeah.
All right, let's take a break and come back and hit it again. Because you can't rely on one screenplay. You write a screenplay and they don't like it, it doesn't sell, you got to write another one. So a lot of people have 2 or 3 going at the same time. Screenwriting is a tough thing to do. It's all tough. That's why you have to love it. I mean, I love it. I would never trade it for anything, but it was partially responsible for my relationship with my girlfriend in LA ending. When I was living in LA, I worked a day job. I was a legal secretary for Hilton Hotels, so I worked 40 hours a week. Then I would go home at night and I did medical transcription for ophthalmologists in Beverly Hills. So that was 20 hours a week. My writing partner would come up from Orange County on Friday night at 5 o'clock. We would work all night Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. We were putting in probably 20 to 25 hours on the weekends just writing. And that was my life in Los Angeles, where it's beautiful all the time, and you can go to the beach, or you can go to the mountains, you can go to Catalina. And I went to the mountains to rock climb. I never went to the beach. I never went to Catalina. I never went to Hawaii. I was working all the time. So, and that's kind of what I'm doing now. And I keep hoping that I'd love for Indie Company and Strangers to take off. I'd love for someone to buy President's Day, although at this point I think I want to just keep President's Day for myself. Here's the other thing. You write something you're really proud of, and when you realize what turds people make of good screenplays, you don't want to give some idiot your screenplay and have them turn into a steaming pile of what I used to make when I was an entrepreneur at 82. So at some point you go, I'll just do it myself. You know, if I screw it up, I screwed it up. The worst thing is to give something that you really believe in to somebody else and have them crap all over it. That's the worst. So that's what I'm doing right now. A little bit of everything. And I probably should back off on the just. All right. So this is much better than this. One of the reasons this works is everything it's 4 lines or less. The other thing is I'm writing down the page. And I'm going to have a little example of that later, but writing down the page means this is toward the end of this screenplay. This is a portion of President's Day. This is toward the end. At the end of this movie, things are happening very quickly, and you want the reader to move quickly through the screenplay. You want to develop a sense of urgency when they're reading it. There is no sense of urgency. If you read it, you'll go, oh, this is an exciting scene. But there's no sense of urgency there because this is this giant block of type. This is written down the page. Kevin and Bonnie are behind the control with destined protective goggles. You can read it. On monitor. Lincoln sits on a stool in the chamber surrounded by his bags of souvenirs. Control room. Moving quickly from one shot to another. Just a quick thing, okay? Here, Lincoln braces himself. This is actually a full sentence. The reason Lincoln is separated, his name is capitalized in this scene slug, but it's only because this is what we're seeing. It's not because he's being introduced for the first time. The shot is on Lincoln. The shot is in the control room. The shot is on the monitor. So Lincoln's in the control room. Now we're going to be close on Lincoln. You see the difference between having it capitalized in a scene description where it's the first time you meet him and he's the subject of the shot? Okay? This is a full sentence. So Lincoln braces himself. So you can do it like that. Here's that thing I was telling you about, thunderous noise. This noise I can't make. Thunderous noise. That's not a thunderous noise. This is something that we're going to have to hire a special effects guy to put that noise in. So that's why it's in all caps. Laser gun fires. Again, that's probably not going to be a practical laser gun. It's going to be something we're going to have to put in CGI or some sort of an After Effects. We're going to have to make a piece of equipment that's going to fire like a laser gun. Things are really rocking. The noise has reached the threshold of plane. Chamber. Bright flashes. The monitors. Again, we're moving down the page. When you read this on a full page, you go quickly through this. It doesn't take very long to read it. It doesn't take a minute to read this. It's probably not going to take a minute of screen time, but you're moving quickly. You're moving that eye down the screen, down the page. The tremors escalate to biblical proportions. Biblical proportions is more interesting than the tremors are really shake the place. See what I'm saying about descriptive things? Biblical proportions is more descriptive than it's shaking a lot. Suddenly, boom! Again, not a practical sound. The monitors go dark. Chamber door blows wide open simultaneously with the control door. Millhouse tumbles into the room. No! Okay? See how he did that? Moving down the page, moving down the page. Here are some little things that I see in screenplays that are really important. And again, these are things that are going to get your screenplay kicked out of consideration if you do it wrong. This is that same scene we just saw. On the monitor is on the bottom of these are 2 pages. Bottom of the first page, top of the second page. You cannot split a scene slug, which is basically what this is, with the scene description. So instead of saying on monitor on one page and the description of the scene on the next page, you just move it down. You're going to have more white space here, but this is now a full block. Does that make sense? Anybody not familiar with what I'm talking about? You're not understand? Okay. Here's another one. You can never separate a character slug from his dialogue at the bottom of the page. They call these widows. You don't want a widow. So even if this were longer and Dennis was up high and there was more white space, but he had a long block of dialogue, I'm going to either move his name down so it matches up with the dialogue, or I'm going to split his dialogue. And it's one of the few times that I'm going to put the word in parentheses, continues, C-O-N''T, after his name, to know that his dialogue continues. Okay? But in this case, I'm just going to move it down to the next page. Now it's married up. When I'm reading this, I don't have to get to this page and go, who's saying you're a lucky young man? Dennis is saying you're a lucky young man, because it's all on the same page. This is from In the Company of Strangers. I've got it. This isn't all from the same screen. Here's a Riley. Here's a parenthetical. Parentheticals can never be separated from the dialogue either. If you're going to do that, again, it's got to all be on the same page. But really, in respect to actors, don't put those in. Let them figure it out. If you've written your screenplay in a strong enough way, if your dialogue is good, if your characters' objectives are good, you don't need to tell the actor that they have to read it sternly or angrily or happily or laughingly. It's an insult to the actors. Let the actors figure it out. Now, if Dennis is on the phone, you can say, into phone. That tells me, oh, he's talking in the phone to somebody else. That's an acceptable parenthetical. The other ones are acceptable. They just kind of cheapen the screenplay. Okay? If you're going to do an insert, a lot of people like to do inserts. Inserts are done this way. You say insert clock on the wall like a scene slug, which reads 7:30. That's your description of the scene. And then if you're going to go back to the scene, which you probably will, you just say back to scene. Now, in this case, say we were in interior Trinity House. We would go interior Trinity House, Brian sits on a chair. Insert, clock on the wall, which reads 7:30, back to scene. Back to scene means we're back in Trinity House with Brian sitting on the chair. Make sense? You don't have to write that again. Again, remember, the more words you put on here, the more words I have to read. The more words I have to read, the more bored I'm going to get. Keep it moving along. Here's another one. Montage. People like to use montages. You do a montage or a series of shots. You just say either montage or series of shots, double space, A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4, and you write out what it is. Now, if you've got If you've got, in this case, it's military police, it's people running. These are not characters who are going to deliver a line. They're just going to be kind of extras. So you don't have to capitalize them. You only capitalize people if they have a line, if they're a main character, or if they're a character that doesn't have a line, but they're going to do something significant, like shoot the president. Now all of a sudden, John Wilkes Booth will be capitalized, even though he didn't have a line. Does that make sense? In this case, though, you're going to mark it up so I know that those are extras. I'm going to need 30 military police. Okay, that goes on my budget. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Some people will do a triple space. They'll between this line and this line, they'll do a triple space to separate the scenes. That's acceptable. You know, rules in screenplays can be broken, some of them. Triple spacing between scenes is acceptable. I don't recommend it because it just means you're losing more space to put your story. And if you get to the end of your screenplay and it's 130 pages, go back, get rid of the triple spaces. You might get it down to 123. So you're okay to just do a double space between a scene description or dialogue and a new scene start. Those are the big problems that I see with screenplay. Now let's talk about some other things you need to think about as a screenwriter. Because how do you get your movie made with your screenplay? What do you have to do when your screenplay is done? What do you have to do? What do you have to do? Got to get it sent out, don't you? Got to get it to an agent, a producer, get it to somebody who can see it, who can make a decision about it. Here's the problem, and I'm going to read something to you. This is from a standard boilerplate submission release that I had to sign when I was living in LA. Gentlemen, this is from me to a producer. Gentlemen, I submit herewith the following material of mine that is more fully set forth below. So I'm going to explain it more in the clauses. This material is submitted upon the following understanding. I didn't write this, I just have to sign this. Clause 1. I recognize that the material may be similar to or identical with material created by your company or members of your staff or received from someone else. Similar to or identical. It's kind of a pass for a producer to steal your stuff. Anybody familiar with the story of Art Buchwald, Eddie Murphy, and Coming to America? For those of you who aren't, Art Buchwald was a political writer. He's no longer living, but he had written a story about a man from, and I don't even know what the story is, a prince who comes to America, I believe, to look for a bride. Is that correct? Yeah. Eddie Murphy was going to star in this movie, Coming to America. Well, they made the movie. Art Buchwald saw it. He said, "That's my story. I wrote that screenplay." They went to court with it. Art Buchwald won. The court determined, oh yeah, this story is so similar to Coming to America, it's clear that Eddie Murphy's company or someone from his company stole this from him. You win. Guess what he won? 0. They said, you will get this amount of money after the film shows a profit. I think Coming to America maybe at some point had crossed over the $1 billion. I know it was several $1 million that it made in sales and residuals and DVD and VCR sales. It never showed a profit. So Art Buchwald won a sort of a spiritual victory, but he never got any money because they stole his idea, but they were protected. So the problem is, if you're going to submit to somebody in Hollywood, you have to sign something very similar to this because nobody will look at your work unless you sign off on it. The world is full of people who are going to say, I gave that script to Steven Spielberg, and all of a sudden it's on television, and that's my screenplay. Now they've got litigation they've got to go through. I went to see Jason Alexander when I was living in LA. There's a thing called the Learning Annex, and you can go there to learn how to skateboard or how to be a personal assistant. Well, they in like $20, so you go for a 3-hour session. And I met Linda Oakes, who's a very famous producer in Hollywood, at one of these Learning Annex things. I also met Jason Alexander. It was a night with Jason Alexander. And I had written a spec script for Seinfeld. And I took my spec script, I called it the hair person, put it in my pocket, and I thought, I'm going to go meet Jason Alexander. I'm going to show him my script for Seinfeld. He's going to read it and go, oh my God, this is amazing. He's going to give it to the producers of Seinfeld, and I'm in. Well, there are 250 people in this room. Jason Alexander gets up at the front of the room. He says, before I start, anybody who has a script for me to read, I can't look at him. I am legally bound not to look at it. 250 people all went, oh. They all had taken their spec scripts into Jason Alexander. They can't read them. They cannot read something that's not solicited by them. And when they solicit it, when they say, yes, I want to read your screenplay, you have to sign a release like this. So, how do you protect yourself? Well, you can't. But you can protect yourself to some degree. The first thing you do when you're done with your screenplay, anybody have a guess what it is? You got it, buddy. Copyright. Send it off to the copyright office. This is the old way. I think you can do it online now, but it used to be you had to fill out a form. So this is my copyright for Ed, the film. This is a little different than a screenplay, but it's basically the same thing. You have to put all your information on it. Used to be you'd mail it off with your money, $20 or $30 or whatever it was. It takes 6 months to get the certificate back, but the minute they receive it, the copyright goes into place. Now, the fact is, when you write your screenplay, the minute you write your screenplay, it's yours. You own the copyright on it, and you can put this circle C on it, and it establishes ownership, but it's hard to make that stand up in court if someone wants to steal it from you, so you got to send it to the copyright office. The other thing you do is you send it to the Writers Guild of America. There's one in New York and there's one in LA. This is also either 25 or 30 bucks. This goes for, what did it go for? For 5 years. 20 bucks, 20 bucks, 25 bucks. It helps establish ownership of your project. Now, if all of a sudden Steven Spielberg decides he's going to do a movie about Abraham Lincoln as the world's first time traveler, I can go to the Writers Guild and I can say, I registered this in 2006, and I re-upped the registration in 2011, and I've got a claim. And the Writers Guild will go and arbitrate for me and protect my interest against somebody like Spielberg. You've got to protect yourself. The old thing of the poor man's registration where you stick it in an envelope and you mail it to yourself and you never open it, that doesn't really work. So take the time, spend the money, and properly protect your material.